100 years ago, 3 men died on the trip we're about to take. We're retracing a 100-year-old expedition on one of the world's most dangerous rivers.
It's getting ready to bolt.
The Amazon jungle was once a mighty foe for explorers. But has logging and climate change made it any less wild? I've explored many corners of this earth, but none are more endangered and more important to the health of our planet than the Amazon rainforest. I'm about to follow in the footsteps of a legendary US president to find out how serious the problem is. I'll have some company on this adventure. My friend, travel writer Kristen Sarah will document this journey on her blog.
The smaller the plane,
The bigger the adventure. So we're on our way to a remote landing strip deep in the Amazon jungle, a place on the Rio Roosevelt, which is a river that was named after Teddy Roosevelt himself.
It was 1914, 3 years after his second term as president, when he embarked on an expedition to explore an uncharted river deep in the Amazon jungle. It was a trip that very nearly killed him. They faced raging rapids, wild animals, they lost boats, supplies, they went hungry. 3 members of his expedition didn't make it out alive. What better way of gauging the mood of the area than by retracing the most dangerous part of that expedition to see this untamed land for myself?
It's truly amazing just to see how big the jungle is from this point of view. Not only is it the largest rainforest in the world, it is also known as the lungs of the world because it produces 20% of the world's oxygen.
The Amazon is just so incredibly vast. There's plenty of spots that we've flown over that have been completely clear-cut.
In the last 20 years, it's lost over 295,000 square miles of forest. That's as big as 2 Germanys. Because of all that logging and the use of the slash and burn method, the downed trees are releasing the carbon dioxide they've absorbed back into the atmosphere, which results in more global warming.
All right, we made it.
Deforestation is far from the only threat to the region. Huge parts of it are drying up because of drought. That's a direct result of climate change. The forest isn't producing the water vapor, which forms the clouds that put the rain in the rainforest.
All right, this is so dense.
We're making our way to a point in the river where Roosevelt and his men started the hardest part of their expedition. It was a gutsy journey. We're going to duplicate part of it to find out how climate change has altered this once wild jungle.
So what do you do if you're the president of the United States? You've already served 2 terms. You tried to go back for a 3rd, was unsuccessful. Do you retire? Just fade away? Not if you're Roosevelt.
He came down to the Amazon and did a kick-ass expedition in one of the wildest places on Earth. I mean, that guy was the most badass president of all time. He had a pet badger. He carried a gun in the White House. He got shot in the chest in an assassination attempt and got on stage and gave a 90-minute speech. Complete badass. In Roosevelt's day, the environment was so hostile that he lost a few boats along the way. It would be one of the thrills of my lifetime to actually find a boat from that remarkable expedition.
Our location is right here. The Rio Roosevelt flows to the north.
It's 400 miles long, with many sections that are completely impassable. We know boats were lost while navigating the rapids, so we're going to concentrate our search at a bend in the river where a lost boat would likely wash up. Torrential downpours are on the horizon as rainy season gets underway. We have no time to lose.
The power of these rapids is incredible. That's where Roosevelt lost one of his men.
It doesn't take much to get swept into the rapids, which is exactly what happened to one of Roosevelt's crew members. His body was never even found.
Oh, this is just way too dangerous.
Yeah,
We're just gonna get
that's
smashed to
too
bits. I don't want to be searching for your boat, and I don't want you searching for my boat.
I don't want to be searching for your body either.
Motorboats only go so far here. That's why we're going to portage past the rapids, then kayak the next leg of the river. The rapids are so powerful, I can actually feel the ground shaking.
1, 2, 3.
Tough slogging, and our kayak only weighs 50 pounds. Roosevelt's boats weighed 800.
Look at this.
Wow.
That is crazy. Just looking at these rapids, absolutely wicked, strong, very dangerous. Scares the hell out of me. It's not the kind of place you want to fall in. So much power.
It just makes sense to portage around this. For us, yeah, it's tough, but for the guys years ago, this would have been a multi-day effort. Cutting down trees, using logs as rollers. They had it hard, really hard.
I just lost my footing there for a second. When you're along the water, especially with these rocks, it's really easy to get trapped in here, kind of like I am right now. This is not serious, but when Roosevelt was here, he actually got his leg smashed between rocks and a canoe. That wound plagued him for the entire expedition, and some even think it contributed to his death. There we go.
Ready to pop it in?
Yeah. There are innumerable rapids down this river. Sometimes you have to portage, carry your boats across land. Sometimes you can put the boat in the water and line it down by rope. There's an easier way to do it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We'll just haul it up here.
All right.
Perfect.
Nice parallel park.
We're past the worst of it, so let's see if we can do the next section the way Roosevelt did, paddling down the raging river.
There's a rock straight ahead.
Left, left, left. There we go.
Take that, Roosevelt.
We just got our first taste of what Roosevelt was up against. Luckily, Kristen recovers quickly.
Roosevelt, hurt me.
You got too cocky.
Back on track. Only 2 more miles to go, and we can start searching the bend in the river. There's a fishing lodge up there where we can get back into motorboats and make some real progress. We've done our research, and we've narrowed down the location.
That way.
We're on our way to the bend where the current could have carried one of Roosevelt's boats. A depth finder and an underwater camera are part of our search arsenal.
We are going to put this underwater metal detector to work. I'm hoping it'll detect any of the boat's iron nails or fittings.
Sometimes, though, the best way to search in the water is to get right in.
Can you pass me the metal detector?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just waiting for that sound.
Of course, there are all kinds of things living in the water here.
Electric eels, flesh-eating piranhas, and the tiny, blood-sucking candiru fish. It's been known to actually swim up your urethra if you pee in the water.
Got anything?
Not yet.
Want to know a little secret? I'm peeing right now. It matters.
I mean, that's your choice. I'm not doing it.
I survived.
For now. No luck quite yet. Back in the boat. That's how you do it.
Let's move the search a little further north. In Roosevelt's day, he would have encountered a lot of wildlife. The biggest is the local crocodilian species, the black caiman.
That's a big one.
And wouldn't you know it, he's right where we want to search.
Black caiman are the apex predator of the Amazon. An adult caiman really has nothing to fear out here except for humans.
It's got good reason to fear us. Just 50 years ago, this king of the river was hunted almost to extinction. Over the last 100 years, its population has decreased by 99%, all for its high-quality skin, which produces shiny black leather. Caimans feed on fish, like piranha and catfish, and mammals, like the capybara, the largest rodent in the world. As caiman numbers decline, their prey thrives. The growing number of capybaras are destroying vegetation and crops. Hunting caimans is now illegal, and their population is slowly recovering. So, it's encouraging to come across a fully grown caiman out here.
Getting a little closer, so he's gonna feel trapped. We should back up.
These animals can't seem to catch a break, though. Their new enemy is drought. North of here, caiman populations are down again as water levels drop. I'd love to get a better look at this guy. At the same time, let's lure him away from our search site by offering him some lunch. Downriver. There's a big caiman right where we want to conduct the search for Roosevelt's long-lost boat. So, we're trying to lure him away. It takes a few hours to convince the caiman to clear out, and now we're losing daylight. We'll set up camp here for the night, but first, I want to install our stealth cams to get a sense of the state of the wildlife here.
This spot looks pretty good. Yeah. Check this out. There's all kinds of tracks and activity.
We have a hoof print here. Might have been a deer.
Look, green banded moss. So beautiful.
The Amazon basin contains so much biodiversity that 10% of all of the Earth's species are found here.
There are some amazing animals I'd love to catch sight of, especially one of the world's rarest big cats, the jaguar.
Any warm-blooded creature that comes by here will get picked up by the infrared sensor. All right, wildlife, anytime.
Show us something.
This spot here is totally flat enough. I'll stick up my tent right here. Here you go. Just want a little fire.
It's about 20 after 5 in the morning. I'm gonna go check on our cameras. Some people say it's insane to camp out here because of the threat of jaguars. They can hide and ambush you very, very quickly. They have been known to kill people. Needless to say, I'll make this a quick check. Okay, we've got a brocket deer and a Brazilian tapir. Both prey for the jaguar. But so far, no jaguar. They need huge amounts of territory to thrive, so they've been hit hard by habitat loss. There are now 80% fewer jaguars than when Roosevelt was here.
Whoa! George, come check this out. Those like jaguar
What you got?
paw prints.
Holy smokes, those are huge.
That's incredible.
Must have come down to take a drink. You see it stepped and then dragged its claws.
Oh yeah.
And that's not the only wildlife this beach has to offer this morning. These weaver birds make the most intricate nests.
Hello, Mr. Tarantula.
So how is climate change going to potentially affect the Amazon jungle? Well, it's hard to say, but a 2009 study suggested that as little as a 3-degree rise in temperature could destroy up to 75% of the rainforest.
And that's combined with deforestation, which not only destroys the area being logged, it also increases soil erosion and degrades rivers. Bad for the rainforest and bad for the wildlife that lives in it. Our quest continues. Based on Roosevelt's notes, we've searched up and down this bend. One of the only places left is off this beach. I'm using a glass-bottomed bucket. Simple, but effective.
Nothing yet.
Do you know how deep it is here? Do you have the depth sounder?
10 feet.
Our research tells us we're close, but there's no sign of it in the river. But what about land that was underwater 100 years ago? This sandbar is the only place left to look.
Because the water level is so incredibly low right now, it could be exposed maybe just under a few feet of sand. Time to pull out some shovels and start digging.
Oh. Right here.
There's definitely something buried here. Here come the rain clouds. This is exactly what we feared. It could rain for days, and this sandbar will be submerged again. We've got to keep digging. It doesn't look like this rain is going to let up. It's discouraging to get this far and think I won't even have the chance to find the trophy I'm looking for. The legendary Theodore Roosevelt's lost boat. We're calling it a day and hoping nature is on our side tomorrow. We've looked high and low around the rapids and found nothing. The only reasonable place left to search is the sandbar. The metal detector was pinging, so I feel good about our chances here. I recruit some locals to help.
We're gonna be here digging forever. Yeah. Something? Something wood? Hey!
Oh, yeah.
We must have dug a dozen different holes on this beach. And finally, we've come across
It looks like a boat.
what looks like a boat. So it looks really, really promising.
Really big.
Yeah, it's definitely a
It seems
boat.
like it's really big.
It's definitely a boat. This really looks like a dugout canoe.
Yeah.
The boats on the Roosevelt expedition were made from a single tree trunk, split in half and hollowed out. They measured about 10 feet long.
Oh, lightheaded. I think we might have found Jimmy Hoffa and Amelia Earhart and D.B. Cooper. We've got most of this boat excavated. Let's see if we can at least give it a budge. Ah!
Wow.
Awesome. The good news and the bad news. The good news is we found a boat against all odds. The bad news is this boat is much too new. It's been painted. There's no way they would have painted their boats. This is an old fishing boat that got washed up here during the rainy season. Yeah, we might as well pull it out of here. 1, 2, 3. We have a boat. Well, this may not have been the boat we were looking for, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's here along the river where he was. Looks like a dugout canoe, but not the right vintage.
And the boat, Roosevelt's boat, is still out there.
We've searched the entire bend. Now, the wet season is approaching and river levels are rising. If we want to find Roosevelt's boat, it'll have to wait another year. Of all the American presidents, Theodore Roosevelt was the most passionate about saving the environment. During his presidency, he protected over 230 million acres of public land including 150 national forests and 5 national parks. So, is the Amazon tamer than in Roosevelt's day? It's hard to say. We faced many of the same challenges he did 100 years ago. What's different is today the rainforest is suffering the effects of human activity through deforestation and climate change. Great strides have been made to reverse the damage, but it'll take a lot more effort to make sure this remains one of the wildest places on Earth. Laos is a place of great beauty with a brutal past. The people here have fought for survival and used their land for protection. The vast caves provided shelter from a bombing campaign which decimated the country. But now there's a new enemy: rapid deforestation. More and more farmers are clearing the land, and big industry is destroying forests at an alarming rate. As climate change continues, this degradation has a global impact. Laos is at the tipping point of change, but can this developing country balance the needs of the people with the needs of the planet? I'm in Southeast Asia, in the small landlocked country of Laos. I've landed in the capital of Vientiane. Laos is one of the last remaining communist countries in the world. Here, the pace of life is slower. The people are poor, but rich in tradition and history.
Every morning, the local monks walk down the street to the temple, and people give them food, and that's their sustenance for the day.
Its geography is breathtaking. Limestone formations, called karsts, are surrounded by lush forest and a land rich in resources like timber and minerals. But increasingly, this small country is under big pressure. Its climate is changing. The dry seasons are getting longer, and its disappearing forest is causing global concern. I'm on a journey to find the source of these problems. I'm starting in central Laos, in the Shanghai province, to learn about an old and controversial farming practice.
The smell of smoke is thick in the air. It looks like it's foggy, but it's actually smoke up in the mountains.
The ground is on fire as farmers burn their land, clearing it to plant new crops. It's called slash and burn and happens for 4 months every year during the dry season.
On the hillside behind me is a really good example of a typical slash and burn for here in Laos. What the farmer has done is cut down the old vegetation, let it sit and dry out for a while, and then set it on fire to get it ready for the next crop.
Farmers are poor, and the terrain is steep and difficult. Slash and burn is the most practical technique they have to fertilize the soil and grow their crops.
Wow. Got a significant burn operation going on here.
It's an agricultural practice dating back thousands of years. It's not pretty, but it is effective. During the burn, carbon enters the atmosphere as CO2, but after, a mineral-rich residue of potassium, phosphorus, silica, and other minerals are left, providing nutrients for the rice crop. Dr. Terry Bolger is a scientific advisor to the Lao government. He's been studying the practice firsthand. He tells me what happens next.
Then you have the ash on the ground, and you've opened up the ground surface. So in a few weeks' time, when the rain comes, then they'll plant into this with their crop, most likely upland rice.
Very low tech.
Yep.
The farmer will just go around with what they call a dibbling stick. So it's just a stick that's maybe a bit pointed on the end, and they'll poke holes at about 25 centimeter intervals, and then in each hole they just drop a few rice seeds.
In the next stage, the monsoon rains will fall and help all those nutrients sink into the soil. Farmers rely on the rains to nourish crops, but the dry seasons are lasting longer, so the harvest could be drastically reduced, and that affects entire villages.
These bigger burns, it's actually going to be the fields of multiple families from one village.
And how much space would they clear typically?
Let's say they might only burn 1/10 of their farming land each year and then rotate around. Now, when population density or pressure on the land starts to get higher, then the system ecologically doesn't work so well anymore.
As more poor Laotians turn to agriculture for survival, the amount of available farmland gets smaller. For the farmers who can't afford sophisticated farm equipment and fertilizers, the merits of this technique are obvious.
Slash and burn agriculture is normal for this part of the world, and no single farmer is going to put that much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. However, no raindrop believes that it's responsible for the flood, so if you add up a lot of these together, thousands upon thousands, the impact does become significant.
But this is not just a farming practice confined to Laos. Worldwide, an estimated 250 to 300 million farmers use slash and burn. It's illegal in Laos because the government worries that too much of the land is being degraded.
You get more erosion, you get more problems with weeds, and you get declines in soil fertility. So those are the main three things that end up making the system sustainable.
As we travel throughout the region, fires are everywhere. The air quality is poor, and some fires are out of control.
Oh, wow. Looks like this slash and burn got a little bit more burn than they were expecting. Coming up the hill, the one thing you don't want to be is uphill of a fire. The wind has really picked up, so that's going to fan the flames.
This fire is getting too close to the nearby village.
A little close for comfort right now.
And there are very few resources to fight the blaze.
Right now, all these little kids are scrambling down the hill with this fire hose because they're fast and they can get through the bush really, really quickly and get that hose to the fire. That sound.
The winds shift, and eventually, the fire burns out. The fires set by farmers can destroy swaths of forest, but are by no means the biggest threat to the land here.
You know, now there's other projects like mining projects or hydropower projects or large plantation tree projects that are all competing for the traditional lands that were used by the local villagers for slash and burn.
All of these factors have contributed to the forest cover in Laos declining from 70% to 41% of the land in 40 years. One of the worst culprits is logging, much of it illegal. The demand for wood in neighboring Vietnam and China has contributed to a logging boom. Many old forests have also been cleared for large and profitable rubber tree plantations. The government has now restricted how much land gets cleared, but observers say the rules are not strict enough and are being ignored. It's a problem all over Southeast Asia, which has the fastest rate of forest decline in the world. As trees are cut down, 1.6 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year get released into the atmosphere due to deforestation. Forest carbon is released when trees burn or when they decay after dying. But trees are also necessary for our planet's survival. Through photosynthesis, trees absorb harmful carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They then use sunlight to turn the CO2 into oxygen, which is put back into the air, helping animals and plants breathe. And now, the devastating effects of deforestation are having a massive impact on the wildlife of Laos. Not long ago, the forests of Laos were home to large populations of both wild and domesticated elephants. But today, they're on the brink of extinction. Wide-scale logging in Southeast Asia is a serious threat to the global ecosystem. I've come to an elephant conservation center in a remote part of northern Laos to see the impact deforestation has had on the elephant population.
It's early morning. The elephants have been left out in the forest overnight so they can rest up and graze. And now, the mahouts are gonna go and find them and bring them back to the conservation center.
Once, Laos was called the land of a million elephants. But a dramatic loss of almost 85% of their traditional habitat means that the population in Laos has declined from 2,000 or 3,000 in the late 80s to around 800.
They really are majestic animals in every sense of that word. They move with such purpose, almost in slow motion, and they have just so much mass, but yet at the same time, so much grace.
Elephants are paying a steep price for illegal logging in this country. Dr. Annabelle Perez is a biologist here, and she helps rehabilitate elephants.
Half of the population, or more than half of the population, is still working logging in Laos.
Most of the elephants here have been rescued from the logging industry. Their riders, called mahouts, rely on the income to survive. They work the elephants to the point of exhaustion and injury. Some are even drugged so that they'll work faster. These conditions have resulted in the elephants not breeding. Their numbers have plummeted.
For years and years, we treat them like they are slaves, you know? So and I think now is the point to change this. It's time now to admire them again and respect them.
The center is encouraging mahouts to give up logging and use their elephants differently. They're part of an ecotourism retraining program where they're learning new ways of handling the elephants.
Not all the mahouts are bad mahouts, you know? Right. They understand why it's better to give food instead to hit them.
Touch, voice signals, and food prompts are used while working with the elephants. They want to preserve the tradition of mahouts, but put it to good use in a modernizing world.
Okay.
There we go.
Here we go.
Okay, now you say side.
Side.
All right.
Side.
Okay.
Side.
And then shake your leg now. Use your voice.
Trying to remember all the commands. Side. Quiet. Quiet.
The center also runs a full veterinary practice and a special nursery for newborn elephants.
It's pretty amazing watching Mama and the baby. So cute.
Set in 250 acres, it's a safe haven away from logging, where the babies and mothers can thrive.
This area is specifically for the elephants to interact and socialize on their own, without the mahouts, without people around, just doing their thing. Do you think the future is bright for the elephants of Laos?
It depends. They can, now is the point, like, or we can make the difference and go here, or we can keep destroying the forest and go down.
Elephants are not the only ones who've struggled for survival. Not long ago, Laotians themselves had to reshape the environment to save their lives. Laos's relationship with its environment has always been one of adaptation. Working with nature to survive in difficult circumstances is nothing new for Laotians.
It's impossible to come to Laos and not talk about UXO, which stands for unexploded ordnance. Bombs. Lots of bombs.
Just 40 years ago, millions of bombs were raining down on Laos during the US secret war here. You can see remnants of them everywhere.
During the Vietnam War period, the Americans dropped more bombs per capita here in Laos than any other country has been bombed in the world.
To survive, the villagers and opposition communists sought refuge in the vast caves in the hills. Terry and I are going into the Vien Sai caves.
That is one serious door.
This cave was a hospital.
Look at a stack of hospital beds.
Yeah. Incubator.
It was built in the late 1960s at the height of the bombing.
This part of this cave was mainly used as an operating room for treating people and a maternity ward. What an interesting place to have a baby. Yikes. Being bombed in a cave.
There were more than 400 caves in this area. Elaborate warrens of tunnels connected eating and sleeping quarters, schools, workplaces, military barracks, and government offices.
Up to 20,000 people were living in these caves. They could hide in here for years. It just goes on and on, doesn't it? They knew that they were in for the long haul. They've reinforced the ceilings, expanded some of the passageways.
Oh, wow, this must be the theater.
They survived 9 years of constant bombing. It's estimated that 20,000 lives were saved by these caves, and that they helped secure victory. The US stopped its bombing campaign in 1973. Today, Laos's caves are helping the world understand a major threat to the planet: climate change. Scientists have figured out how to read the messages that these caves are offering up. Terry and I head to the next cave.
Now, there's a lot of limestone here in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, this area in central Laos that carries into central Vietnam a little bit is one of the largest blocks of limestone in Southeast Asia.
Laos also has a vast system of rivers. All that water pounding on limestone for millions of years has carved out underground waterways that contain some scientific treasures. We're heading to the Konglor Cave to do some exploring.
One thing I've learned about the caves here in Laos is that they're big, really, really big. You could practically fly an airplane through them.
Terry is conducting some important climate research, and these caves are a crucial part of that work.
What we have in this part of the world is what's called a monsoonal type climate with a distinct wet season and dry season. In terms of understanding climate change, we want to look back, say, thousands, maybe 20,000 years ago to understand what the changes of the monsoon have been through that time period.
Knowing how seasons fluctuated in the past can help Laotians understand how long they should expect wet and dry periods to last in the future. Terry and other scientists do this climate research by looking at cave mineral samples found deep inside. We're traveling through the mountain via an underground river that's 4 miles long.
So what's the name of this river?
Hinbun, Limestone River.
And that's appropriate, considering we're under millions of tons of it right now.
It's pitch black in here. Our flashlights have to work hard in this massive space.
Basically going upstream right now.
We're looking for stalagmites of just the right age to help with Terry's research. Millions of years worth of water dripping from above during wet periods and then evaporating when it's dry have left behind telltale marks on these structures that are a virtual record of Laos's climate through the ages.
Real shallow spot. And there's a waterfall here.
We hit rapids. These caves are dangerous and unpredictable. This scientific expedition is becoming a white-knuckle adventure. We're navigating some unexpected rapids deep inside the belly of a mountain. But it isn't long before we're through.
Little elbow grease gets you through anything.
We continue through the darkness. We're looking for the best stalagmite for Terry's research.
Let's go have a look.
We need to find a stalagmite that Terry can tag and monitor over the next few months. He wants to find an active one and then see how much water drips on it in the upcoming wet season.
Oh, it's beautiful on this side, Terry.
All right, get an estimate of how tall this column of formations is.
So let's see, to that flowstone over there. In the future, the chosen stalagmite will be removed and put under the microscope for deeper analysis. Scientists can read its cross-section like a history book.
Get a distance to the wall.
Stalagmites are particularly useful for climate research because they contain several different climate records, such as oxygen and carbon isotopes.
Okay. Looks like there might be some standalone stalagmites over this way.
Watch your step. Look at this big mama.
Too big for what we want today.
What about Junior here? A little more manageable size?
I think this would work for us. You know, probably we're looking at somewhere in the tens of thousands of years here. So what I'd like to do is put a piece of flagging tape at the point where the drips would hit. And then we can capture some of the new calcite formation on the top of the piece of flagging tape. So if we come back in, say, 3 or 6 months' time, that'll help us to decide whether this is the one that we want to take to do the detailed work on back in the laboratory.
So we have this great opportunity to try and see what the climate has been like in terms of dry and wet for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years in the past.
That's right.
Very cool.
With our sample found and tagged, it's time to navigate our way out. The work done here will help our global understanding of how climate has been changing over time. Southeast Asia is currently going through unpredictable dry and wet seasons. Information about how those cycles behaved in the past will make the changing of the seasons much more predictable. The limestone karsts and caves of Laos have remained relatively untouched for centuries. For that reason, scientists are only now discovering that on top of these towering limestone formations are pristine ecosystems, little gems of biodiversity. But now, the karsts and the unspoiled world they support are under grave threat.
there's a spot where there's a scar on the side of the limestone. And that's where the local cement company has come here and is actually excavating and mining that limestone to use in their cement production. So at some point, this will end up being completely gone.
Limestone is the key ingredient in cement.
What a lot of people don't realize is that the production of cement is so widespread. It's the #2 resource used in the world just behind water. And it's actually a tremendous source of greenhouse gases. It takes, I've heard, between 7 and 8 tons of carbon dioxide gets pumped into the atmosphere for every ton of cement that is constructed.
Right now, there are 12 cement factories in Laos, but the country wants to increase production to meet the demands of change. In order to modernize, Laos plans to improve infrastructure, such as roads, dams, and housing. Depending on how those plans are carried out, those changes can either be devastating to the environment or have virtually no impact at all. The government will need to take a more active role in the protection and management of its farmland and forests, and resolve to harvest natural resources in a sustainable manner. If they do that, they stand a good chance of being one of the few nations to find a way of modernizing while reducing poverty and fighting climate change at the same time. Laos is well positioned to hit that very rare environmental home run. Hostile weather is nothing new to Bangladesh. Seasonal rains and tropical storms hit its low-lying coast and flood its many waterways annually. But as temperatures rise worldwide, our weather is becoming more volatile, and nowhere is that felt harder than Bangladesh. A country being battered so fiercely by the effects of climate change that their existence is under threat right now. Bangladesh has been forced to take extreme measures to survive its battle against climate change. But will it be enough? I've traveled halfway around the world, this time to Bangladesh. I'm on the southern tip of Bola Island, where the land ends and the Bay of Bengal begins. And of course, I'm traveling in the monsoon, the heaviest part of the rainy season.
The sky has opened up, and it is coming down in buckets.
About 80% of Bangladesh's yearly rainfall occurs during monsoon season, which lasts from June to October. By the end, almost 1/3 of the country is underwater. And now, climate change is making the rains more unpredictable and intense.
It's raining pretty hard, isn't it? Yeah, it's heavy.
I'm joined by translator and guide Riazul Hook.
I'm totally ready to cope with the rain.
Bangladesh receives 80 inches of rain per year, making it one of the wettest places on Earth.
Bangladesh is a country that has been shaped by water. The entire country is basically a river delta.
It's crisscrossed by 700 rivers and innumerable streams and tributaries. Meltwaters from the mountain ranges in the north flow into the lowlands below, where they reach the largest bay in the world, the Bay of Bengal. 80% of the country is low-lying, with much of the coastal region just over 3 feet above sea level. The land is made up of silt, a soft mixture of sand and sediment, making it prone to flooding and erosion.
Whoa, very difficult to walk in. This fine silt has been deposited here. Some of it local, some of it will have even come all the way from the glaciated areas of the Himalayas, thousands of miles to the north.
As a result, the land here is very fertile, but also very fragile. As climate change takes hold, more water is flowing down from the mountaintops. Riverbanks are swelling, making tides more dangerous, all of which are hitting the shores of Bangladesh hard.
We're losing a lot of the land to the water. Bangladesh is a country that might very well be disappearing right in front of our eyes.
The effects of erosion can be seen everywhere.
But you can see almost a sharp knife edge where the riverbank has just been slowly carved away. Every high tide, a little more goes out. Every storm, a little more goes out. It's eroded back right to the edge of the road.
Chacha, apnar naam ki chacha? Mohammad Akbar Ali Sana. Mohammad. His name is Mohammad Akbar Ali Sana. He has been living here for 19 years.
19 years.
When he settled here first time, his house was 20 feet from here.
That's where the house used to be.
Yeah, 20 feet that way.
And it just keeps having to move it back?
এবং এটা ভাঙতে 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 এদিকে, yeah, it's moving back towards the road.
A large population and lack of space means thousands of people are forced to live in these exposed places. Alamgir Hussain is a climate change specialist from the UN Bangladesh Development Program.
We have 19 coastal districts, and roughly 60 million people lives here. A recent study shows that, if the sea level rises by 80 centimeters, and if there is no action, then at least Bangladesh will lose around 17% of its landmass. If I only consider the coastal part of Bangladesh, then roughly around 80% of the coastal arable land will be gone.
With seas predicted to rise between 30 to 80 inches by the end of the century, it's a very real threat. Already, the sea is encroaching, and you can see how the locals are desperately trying to hold back the water.
Is they put up these wooden protection barriers along the riverbank, and it's basically a last-ditch, desperate attempt to keep what remaining land they have from falling into the river. It seems to be working for now, but I don't think it's going to hold for too many more years.
As sea levels continue to rise, protecting the coast and its communities is key to this country's survival. And nowhere is this more important than the Sundarbans region, which has the largest mangrove forest in the world. I'm heading west to see Bangladesh's best natural protection against sea level rise and storm surges. The Sundarbans covers 4,000 square miles. 60% is in Bangladesh and 40% in India. It's home to over 500 species of animals, including the endangered Bengal tiger.
All morning, I've been seeing different fishermen set up with their boats in the middle of the river.
The area is rich in natural resources like fish, providing a livelihood for the 3 million people who live in the surrounding communities. We head deep into the jungle.
We've taken the boat out early, 5:30 this morning, gone upstream a bit, and now we're just letting the current take us downstream very quietly. There's this strange glowing orb in the sky that I haven't seen in many, many days. The sun has actually decided to make an appearance.
This vast forest provides an important natural protection to the coast of Bangladesh. Mangrove trees can grow in salt water and low oxygen soil. Their dense root system helps stabilize the coastline and reduces erosion and damage from waves and storms. But now, increased erosion throughout the region is causing unsustainable amounts of sediment and silt to enter the waterways that flow through the forest. And the protective mangrove trees are suffocating. Dr. Khan tells me why.
These creeks are like blood vessels. And the problem is because of the continuous siltation, these creeks are silted out. And once the creeks are silted, all the mangrove roots are blocked. And these are the breathing organs for mangrove plants. Roots are blocked, they cannot breathe, so they die.
200 years ago, the Sundarbans measured about 6,400 square miles. Now, it's down to a third of its original size. Of course, this loss of habitat is having a big impact on the animals that live here. The tiger population has drastically shrunk by 40% in only 10 years.
So there are actually a lot fewer tigers than was originally thought. That's not a very big population, between 100 and 200 individuals.
No, it's not a big population. If the tiger is gone, there will be too many deer, and they will graze all the seedlings. That's why there will be no regeneration. That will be a catastrophic event. That will be from the apex to the bottom.
Saving the mangrove forest and the creatures that live in it is essential because without it, a huge chunk of the Bangladesh coast will be rapidly swallowed by the sea. Hundreds of animal species won't survive, and millions of people will be displaced. But erosion and rising sea levels are not the only climate-related issue threatening Bangladesh. The monster cyclones that blow through every year bring a whole other level of destruction. Bangladesh is a country battered by fierce weather that sweeps in across the Bay of Bengal. Cyclone season lasts from August to November, bringing massive storms. But now, as climate change takes hold, they're getting more fierce and unpredictable.
Cyclones are what we would call hurricanes. The people that live here are about as vulnerable to these massive cyclones as anyone in the world. It's hard to imagine a population of people more exposed to the elements.
Cyclones are a product of heat and moisture. They form in the warm Indian Ocean just before and after monsoon season. As climate change warms the sea, cyclones and tropical storms get worse. The damage from past storms can be seen everywhere as I travel to meet those affected by the extreme weather here.
And the spot I'm visiting today is Charfesong Orphanage.
70 boys make this place their home. Shirajul Islam is the director of the orphanage.
What were the circumstances that caused the orphanage to be formed in the first place?
The orphanage is established after cyclone 1970. More than 300,000 people died in this area.
The 1970 Bola cyclone was the deadliest tropical storm in history, with a storm surge of up to 30 feet. And since then, globally, the number of cyclones has tripled. Here in Bangladesh, hundreds of people are killed each year by storms.
Most of the students are lost their father in the Bay of Bengal.
So most of their fathers were fishermen?
Yeah, fishermen.
The country has been hit by 10 cyclones in 16 years. The last one was in 2007, when Cyclone Sidir tore through the south, devastating communities. It also coincided with some of the worst monsoon flooding the country had seen.
What would you do with the orphans, with the boys, if a cyclone was coming 2 days from now?
We have one building. Our boys can take shelter in there.
There are cyclone shelters all over the country now, and they've drastically reduced deaths from storms. In spite of the hardship they've faced, the future for these kids is optimistic.
Our boys are doing good results, so they are doing hard work. And our boys are loving the orphanage. They can play.
So they have a good place to stay, they make friends, they get educated to better themselves, that they can now get good jobs. Every year, the seasons bring tremendous change to the landscape here. And as we move forward, those changes are going to become more and more drastic as climate change continues to creep on and have its effect here in Bangladesh.
One place where these changes are incredibly apparent is the village of Kukrimukri, where a project is underway to save homes and livelihoods from the damage caused by climate change. Here, storm surges regularly wash away houses, flood farmlands, and render crops useless because of saltwater intrusion.
When salinity intrudes, the agricultural production of Bangladesh significantly will impact. One other major challenge associated with salinity intrusion is right now with availability of fresh water and fresh water for drinking. Bangladesh is called a land of rivers. Water is everywhere, but right now in Bangladesh, still around 20 million people in the coastal belt is suffering from crisis of drinking water.
Alamgir takes me around the village to see what they're doing about it.
So is this the embankment here?
Yeah, this is the embankment here. It's around 14 kilometers long. The sea is on that side.
In order to protect themselves, a thick embankment made from mud has been built all around the community with the help of the UN.
So I could follow this embankment now all the way around the perimeter of the island for 14 kilometers?
All these 14 kilometers you can, yes.
Impressive.
Just 2 years back, nothing was here.
It provides a wall of protection from saltwater intrusion and storm surges 10 feet high. Ponds have been dug to collect the rainwater during the monsoon.
Yeah. So this acts as a freshwater reservoir. This water can be, purified through, there are very simple techniques.
This land normally would not have been very useful, but now there are fish in the pond and there's vegetable gardens all the way ringing around.
There are 10 similar projects across the south. But for many along the coast, the flooding can't be stopped and they're forced to flee. Thousands of displaced Bangladeshis head to Dhaka every year, and the mass influx is creating an entirely new crisis. Dhaka, the crowded capital of Bangladesh, where according to the NGO Coastal Watch, every hour another 11 Bangladeshis arrive after losing their homes to rising seas. It's a global problem. Experts predict that by 2050, 250 million people worldwide will be forced to move due to the effects of climate change. 10% will be in Bangladesh.
There are some studies going on really to find out climate-induced migration. They can't really afford to have a sustainable livelihood, so they're moving out.
The population of Dhaka is exploding. There are 14 million people crowded into 180 square miles, making it one of the most densely populated cities in the world. The city's infrastructure can't keep up. We hail a rickshaw to go and see how the people hardest hit by climate change live. With so many people in Dhaka, jobs are scarce, and many earn just $2 a day pulling rickshaws.
For the low-income people, they can pull the rickshaw and they can make some money.
Many of them live in the poor neighborhoods, like the one I'm being taken to.
This part of Dhaka is known as the Bola slum, and it's named after the island of Bola, where most of these people who live here have relocated from.
It was originally built for people left homeless by the devastating 1970 cyclone, but now it also houses people who have simply lost their land from the encroaching sea.
This place is totally a labyrinth.
It's the definition of hardship. There's only one electricity supply and very little clean running water. This is what life is like for 3 million people living in Dhaka.
It's kind of heartbreaking to see because so many families live in just such terrible, poor conditions here. A lot of these people don't have a lot of choice but to come to places like this.
Even though Dhaka isn't on the coast, it's surrounded by water and extremely vulnerable to the effects of monsoon rains. And the more that falls, the harder life becomes. I find my way to the home of the Kasham family, who fled Bola 16 years ago. Now, they live next to the city's drainage canal, which regularly overflows in the rain.
This is the wall of Dhaka water sanitary system.
Okay.
Here, there's the pumping system, end of this canal. In Bangladeshis, they have the pumping system. So this area almost go underwater every year.
Here on the other side of the wall?
Other side, and then come inside. Water level goes up to that mark. You see the jars?
Wow.
They were flooded, and this area was submerged around for 11 days maximum, once.
Even in here, people can't escape the ravages of climate change. If monsoon rains become as intense as predicted, Dhaka won't be a safe refuge for long. I leave, and as I head to the port of Dhaka, my journey is slowed down, not by the weather, but by celebration. Bangladesh has the 4th largest Muslim population in the world and is also the 3rd largest Hindu state. Monsoon season coincides with important festivals for both faiths.
It's the end of Ramadan here, and you can hear the prayer call in the background. This city is bustling right now. Eid Mubarak! Eid Mubarak!
And in the Hindu neighborhood, they're celebrating the Rath Yatra festival.
It is one of the biggest festivals in the Hindu calendar.
And boy, do the Bangladeshis know how to celebrate.
These thousands of people, we've all come together, and we're pulling the chariot through the streets.
The festival is an ode to Jagannath, or Juggernaut, which means unstoppable force. Not unlike the monsoon.
It looks like the Juggernaut, the unstoppable force, is about to meet the other unstoppable force, the monsoon.
But the revelers don't let that stop them. Once unhooked, the chariot temple is pulled to its final destination.
This is as far as the chariot is going to come. It's going to sit here for a week.
The Jagannath statues are carried through the crowd of devotees to the local temple.
That was a world-class, grade A, sensory overload. An honor to have been here. Just loved it. And we got some monsoon rain.
As the heavens open, it's clear to me that the Bangladeshi people are used to persevering in the face of extreme weather. With that in mind, I head north.
Resilience and adaptability are two terms that I would definitely use to describe the people that live here.
I'm discovering as the flooding here gets worse, Bangladeshis are finding increasingly more innovative ways of adapting. I've traveled to the north, to Pabna, to visit an inspirational education program.
So what do you do if you live in a remote, rural part of the country that floods regularly? You've got kids, you need to send them to school. Well, you improvise and innovate.
Here, they've come up with the idea of floating schools. In 1998, the first floating school was founded to help the children who were missing out on vital education as schools were frequently flooded. I meet the program's manager, Suprakesh Paul.
শীতলাই স্বনির্ভর সংস্থা চিন্তা করলো যদি স্কুলটাই ছাত্রদের বাড়ির দোরগোড়ায় পৌঁছাতে পারে।
They started with one boat, but now have a fleet of 39. There are 22 school boats, 10 library boats, and 7 adult education centers.
Here in the library boat, we've got all kinds of books for all different ages. We've even got a couple of computers up in the front, run by solar power, so it can be operating pretty much anywhere. It's a pretty cool setup.
70,000 kids have benefited from this project. But it's not just classrooms that are floating. Many farms have also been erected above the water.
We've got a garden with vegetables. We've got ducks that they keep here for, of course, their eggs and for meat.
Being self-sufficient is vital for survival.
In each of these ponds, there's fish that they're growing.
এভাবে পুরো পরিবারকে আমরা আমাদের প্রোগ্রামের আওতায় আনার চেষ্টা করছি এবং এখান থেকে অনেকে যারা ট্রেনিং পাচ্ছে ট্রেনিং পেয়ে অনেক।
What's clear to me is that the people of Bangladesh have a remarkable character when confronted by extreme weather.
From building schools out on the water to finding new ways to grow crops in an ever-increasing environment of unpredictability.
As our climate continues to change and the weather becomes more severe, Bangladesh is a country to watch. It's facing the most extreme repercussions of climate change, from severe flooding and erosion to mass displacement. Things we could see across the globe if immediate action is not taken to combat climate change.